Hey guys, how's it going? SoCal here. Been getting a lot of questions about my SPod setup and trying to convey to a couple of people on YouTube, a couple of friends of mine, how it works and kind of the way I have mine set up. It's a little more complicated than I've ever seen, at least in a YouTube video, but I think this is more or less what John, the engineer who designed this stuff, kind of intended. It's such a hugely universal product, and I just wanted to show a little bit about how I have mine set up to kind of give you guys an idea of how universally amazing the thing is and what it can really do as compared to what a lot of people only use it for. Here is the first one that I have. The actual SPod itself is here located on the battery. It's just velcroed down for just kind of ease of mounting. There's not really a place in here where you can mount it. Maybe there is over there, but the leads that it comes with are fairly short. You can get longer ones if you need them, but really when you're working high amperage stuff, the shorter the cable the better. So those are 3 feet long, and they're just kind of wrapped around and hooked up to the battery like that. But I do have 7 items running off of this. The first channel is empty because I use it as a trigger for 2 of the other channels, kind of like a macro button. But this one is SPod number 1, and it controls my KC light bar, the Pro Gravity 6. I have a couple of ditch lights made by Rigid, and then coming towards the front here I have my KC fog lights, which are actually the G34 wide 40s. Those are awesome lights. Got a cool demonstration from one of the guys up in the Williams factory for KC that works up there. I was able to visit them, and consequently I also ended up buying one of those as well, which is the KC Flex system. It's 2 individual, well actually each of the lights are individual, but they come in 5 packs, or you can get them in like 20, 30, 40, 50 inch varieties, and then have the amber cover on them. I also have a few things on the inside of the Jeep that is connected to that SPod as well. And then coming around the back, I do have another SPod. Here is the controller for it. It's the HD screen with really great clicky buttons. I like that just for the fact that you don't have to fumble with it. Their LED is a little fumbly. I mean, it still works outstanding, don't get me wrong, but these are more like gorilla proof. You can come up and just hit it. You don't have to really aim. You know what I'm saying. So anyway, that's the second one. The Bantam that's connected to that, the second unit, is actually mounted right there on a shelf in the back, right above the wheel well. Let's see if I can get a focus on it. So yeah, and then you can also see the wire loom, that plastic wire loom comes up the sport bar and then across up into the ceiling. Kind of runs like that and comes out of the ceiling up here at the top of the Jeep. This is where all the lighting and whatnot that I have installed to the roof rack. It comes through on one of these wire clams. I can't think of the technical term for it, but it's a marine product that you put on boats to run things like radio wires and whatnot from the mast or outside of the boat to the inside of the boat, and it's all waterproof and tight. So I have some Baja Design sport lights here for scene lights out there right above the rear passenger door, as well as on the rear corner here on both sides, and I can control those from here. So also have the Baja Designs chase light that's just mounted directly up underneath this roll bar. Kind of hard to see because the camera iris is going insane, but So say I want to turn on the rear lights, I just hit this button while I'm back here. It's super convenient. I have to go up to the front to deal with any of the LED panel. So that turns on both the center light on the chase light as well as the two corner lights there. You can see them flickering away. They don't really flicker, it's just the frame rate of the camera. Or up underneath the Vector Off-Road shelf, I have another light that's there, so I can hit that light, and that also turns on the LED bar up underneath the rear glass there. Makes for a nice, not so bright kind of illumination back here. I do have my ham radio connected to this rear Bantam, and a little more, I'll get into that a little bit later. Also the backup lights, you can trigger those if you need to. Those are in the rear bumper. I also have this set up on a trigger as well, and again we'll talk about that in a second. So there's the rear panel, and we'll get into the front here. And so I have an iPad right there, and I'm kind of experimenting with that spot. I did have it mounted right next to where you see the ham radio, kind of across that area right there. Then I have my ham radio right there. ICOM, what is it, ID, it's an IC or ID 5100, one of those others. And then the SPod LED panels right here. Alright, so with the SPod, the LED panel actually is really cool because it has kind of like a neat little graphical user interface, so to speak. You can control a lot of functionality that is a little more archaic when you're using the switch panel, like I have in the back, the HD panel. For instance, I have this one button, and I had mentioned this earlier, where I have it programmed to do both. I have lights that I have screwed up into the sport bar. I have these little Cyclone KC lights. One there, right above the passenger's right ear, and another one right by my left ear as a driver. And I can turn them both on, just hitting that both button. Turn them on and off, easy peasy. What I hit, ditch lights. But I can turn them on individually as well, left, right, and then you'll notice this little meatball that shows up every time I kind of hit that switch. Actually, that one's not, yeah, there it goes. So I can dim, and let me see if you can see that. Okay, so see that reflection right there? That's the light that's getting reflected from behind me. I can dim the light or make it brighter using that little slider. You can do the same thing on the HD panel. You just have to hold the button in, and it will cycle all the way down and then cycle all the way back up to bright. So this makes it a little easier. So that's kind of what I was referring to. I also have these rock lights. I have those set up. So let me back up a bit. The both Bantams, and I believe the regular SPods, I can't think of what I think they're called the Source. They all have triggers that you can trigger the switches without actually hitting the switch, being physically in front of the panel and touching it. So, like for instance, I have my rock lights set up where they're spliced into well, not the lights themselves, but I spliced into the courtesy light up underneath the dash. So when you open the door or lock the door or unlock the door, do anything with access to the Jeep, that light typically comes on as a courtesy function, you know, just part of the car's electronics. So I tapped into that and I set it into one of the inputs on my Bantam to trigger the rock lights. So say I'm out camping, or I'm in a dark alley or whatever, and I want to see what's going on next to my car from a distance, or make sure there's not a scorpion under the car that's about to ding me, or a snake or whatever, I can just hit my key fob, either lock the door or unlock the door, and those lights will come on. It's kind of a cool feature. I also do that with the ham radio. So when I start the car, I have my key with me here. the radio comes on. So that's super easy. When I turn it off, the radio goes off. The way I did that was I spliced into the seat heater circuit. So that seat heater only works when the ignition is, or the accessory is turned on. As soon as you open the door, the radio goes off, as does this accessory circuit. So that's kind of another bonus there. And then in the back, like I was mentioning earlier, I have my reverse lights also tapped in the same way, where I spliced into the reverse light positive circuit, run it into the Bantam on the channel where the backup lights are, and those will come on when I put the Jeep in reverse. So I don't see a lot of people using it for that application. It's a really cool feature to be able to control things without having to touch anything to make it happen. And then I guess lastly, I'll show you how they all connect together. Oh, one more thing before we do that. So I have the two Bantams. You can swipe. I tend to use this bottom area because it's not sensitive to do anything. You can touch it and it doesn't control anything. So I've kind of gotten in the habit of swiping there. I mean, you can swipe anywhere on it to move from Bantam to Bantam, but what ends up happening is you inadvertently turn things on and off. So I tend to use this area down here. So you can see this number up here. You have SPod 1, and you just swipe SPod 2. That's the one in the back. And then you can connect up to 4 of these things. So this would be the 3rd one if I had one, and that would be the 4th one if I had one. So this is 2, and then back to 1. That's super cool. And I'll show you how they all kind of connect. So they're all chainable, for lack of a better word. You can kind of see these 2 Ethernet cables right here. That's all they are. They're just basically Ethernet cables, RJ45, 8 conductor wire. The wire that's black goes to the panel that's mounted on the Vector off-road shelf in the back of the Jeep, and then the yellow one actually is chained to the original Bantam unit. Sorry about that knock. It's up underneath in the front under the hood right here, and then you can't see it because it's too dark, but right next to it, right in front of my finger, that's the line that goes back through the firewall that connects to the LED panel. So if you wanted to add an additional one of these, basically you daisy chain it between the 2. Basically all you need is a switch at either end of the daisy chain, and you'll be able to control any of them or all of them with either the LED, or you can assign the HD panels to which switch pod you want it to control, if that makes any sense. So if I wanted, like I have now, the HD is set up to control my Bantam number 2, and that's just a function of the software that you use to program it. And you can program them with their software using your phone or an iPad or whatever. It's just a Bluetooth connection that connects into the Bantam itself, and you can set the labels and make pictures and whatnot for the buttons the way you want them to look as well. So anyway, that's kind of my setup, and I don't really see a need to add any more Bantams at the moment, but I'm kind of a gadget nerd. I might get another one if I can find more lights or something to run off of it. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. You guys know the drill. Hit that sub button, give me a thumbs up, and be good at it. Buy a Jeep and some SPod Bantams.